Hey everyone, hope you're ready for another deep dive. You guys sent us this YouTube video. It's called The Real Fallen Angels They Don't Want You to Know About from the channel Universe Inside You, and well, let's just say we had to check this one out.
Yeah, it's definitely an attention grabber.
Fallen angels, ancient civilizations, forbidden knowledge. I mean, come on. How can you resist that?
Right. It's all pretty fascinating stuff.
So we're going to go deep here. We'll be looking at some ancient texts and mysterious archaeological finds and myths that seem to pop up in cultures all over the world. And we'll see if we can't unravel some of these mysteries. Sound good?
Sounds good to me. I'm ready when you are.
All right, let's do it. So right off the bat, the video dives into this idea of fallen angels. And it's really interesting how this concept has stuck around for centuries. Like, you see it in so many different cultures and time periods.
It really is intriguing, isn't it? Like, what is it about these figures that keeps us so captivated? This video really digs into that mysterious and alluring nature of fallen angels. And it doesn't shy away from getting into some pretty specific sources. Like, right away, it jumps into the Book of Enoch.
The Book of Enoch, okay, full disclosure, I'm not super familiar with that one. It's not exactly your standard Sunday school material.
You tell me. It's an ancient Jewish text that didn't quite make it into the official biblical canon. But it does offer some pretty detailed accounts of these beings called the Watchers.
The Watchers. Okay, that sounds ominous. Are we talking like guardian angels gone rogue?
Kind of. But unlike those vague, ethereal beings you sometimes hear about, the Book of Enoch describes them in a very physical way, like they were actually present on Earth, interacting with humans.
Whoa, hold on. So we're not talking some spiritual whispers from the heavens, but actual beings walking among us.
Yeah, that's what the Book of Enoch suggests. And it gets even more specific. Enoch 6.1. It actually describes angels being drawn to human women.
Okay. So are we talking about that whole angels mating with humans idea?
You got it. That's one of the big themes the video explores. And it even makes a connection to a passage in the Bible, Genesis 6.1 to 4, where it talks about sons of God having children with human women.
Right, right. And those offspring were the Nephilim. I remember hearing about that. Those were the giants, right?
Exactly. The Nephilim, a race of giants.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So is the video suggesting that these fallen angels, or maybe their offspring, could have actually had a hand in shaping early human societies?
That's one of the central questions it explores. And to really get into that, we need to unpack this whole Nephilim thing a bit more. They're often portrayed in a pretty negative light, connected to corruption and a decline in human morality, which ultimately led to the Great Flood.
It's interesting how giants appear in so many myths and legends all over the world. You always get that sense of power and mystery around them. But is there any real evidence to back up those stories? I mean, besides ancient texts?
That's where things get even more interesting. The video actually points to a number of archaeological discoveries that kind of suggest there might be more to these giant tales than we initially thought. Like, there are all these oversized weapons that would have been basically impossible for an average-sized human to use.
You mean like giant swords and stuff?
Exactly. Like, they talk about this Japanese odachi, which is this type of sword that could be over 12 feet long.
12 feet? That's longer than my car. What else? What else is there?
Okay, they also mentioned the Flensburg sword. That one was found in Europe, and it's over 7 feet long. And then there are these giant axes unearthed in Greece, and a whole bunch of massive tools discovered in Morocco. And get this. There's even a giant footprint etched into granite in South Africa.
Hold up. A giant footprint in granite? All right, now I'm really intrigued, but couldn't those oversized tools and weapons just be ceremonial? Or maybe their size has been exaggerated through storytelling over time,
Those are definitely possibilities. And to be fair, the video isn't presenting these discoveries as, like, definitive proof of giants. But it does make you think outside the box, right? It encourages you to consider that maybe, just maybe, there's more to those ancient stories than meets the eye.
I love that. Like, we're being challenged to become history detectives, trying to piece together all these clues from the past. So how does all of this tie back to the fallen angels?
Well, here's where the video makes a pretty bold claim. It suggests that these fallen angels were actually the source of forbidden knowledge, the kind of knowledge that gave humans a huge advantage, but also may have come with some pretty serious consequences. And they point to Enoch 8.1, where it talks about angels teaching humans all kinds of skills, like metalworking, crafting weapons, making jewelry, even things like cosmetics.
That's fascinating because in a lot of ancient traditions, the whole idea of getting knowledge, especially knowledge that's seen as divine or secret, is often portrayed as a double-edged sword. It can be a source of power and progress, but it can also lead to downfall.
Exactly. And the video emphasizes how this wasn't just about learning some practical skills. It was a major leap forward for humanity, enabling us to go from just surviving to actually shaping and controlling the world around us.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all connects. So we've got these fallen angels potentially sharing knowledge with humans, helping them advance technologically, and maybe even socially. But what kind of impact did this knowledge really have? Did it actually lead to the rise of civilizations?
That's the big question, isn't it? And to answer that, the video digs into some pretty specific examples. It highlights things like the teachings of astrology, medicine, and even sorcery, suggesting that these had a huge impact on early cultures, not just in practical ways, but also in shaping their beliefs and their understanding of the world.
Okay, so now we're talking about the pyramids, right? And Stonehenge. Because those ancient wonders have always fascinated me. How on earth did they build those things with such incredible precision? It's mind-boggling.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
That's exactly where we're heading next. The video uses those incredible structures, the pyramids, Stonehenge, Sacsayhuaman in Peru, as examples of this advanced knowledge that may have come from these fallen angels. Like, maybe it was a gift, or maybe it was something they forced upon humanity.
All right, this is getting really good. Ancient mysteries, forbidden knowledge, maybe even giants roaming the earth. I can't wait to see where we go from here.
Well, get ready, because next up, we're going to explore some seriously mind-blowing examples of ancient technology that might just make you question everything you thought you knew about the past. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, all the technology we have today, our smartphones, computers, all that, it seems impossible just a few decades ago.
Right. And who knows what amazing tech we'll have in the future.
Exactly. But what's even more mind-blowing is the idea that some of these technological leaps might not be as new as we think. What if the seeds were planted way back in ancient times? Like, what if ancient civilizations were way more advanced than we give them credit for?
Okay, now you're speaking my language. I've always been fascinated by those what-if questions. The idea that our ancestors might have possessed knowledge that we're only just now rediscovering, but the video mentioned advanced technology. What exactly are we talking about here?
Well, they brought up a few really interesting examples. One of the most compelling ones is this thing called the Antikythera mechanism. It was found at an ancient Greek shipwreck, and essentially a complex system of gears and dials that's often considered to be the world's first computer.
Wait a minute, a computer from ancient Greece? I remember seeing something about that in a documentary once. It looked like something straight out of a steampunk novel.
Right, it's pretty wild. And what's even crazier is how sophisticated it was. I mean, this thing could track the movements of celestial bodies, predict eclipses, even calculate the timing of the Olympic Games.
Hold on. So we're talking about some serious astronomical and mathematical knowledge here, like way ahead of its time. Is the video saying that fallen angels gave them the blueprints for this thing or something?
It doesn't go quite that far. It acknowledges that there are still a lot of unanswered questions about the Antikythera mechanism. Like, we still don't fully understand how it was built, who created it, or even what its exact purpose was. But it does present it as a prime example of how advanced ancient technology could have been.
It definitely makes you wonder what other incredible inventions might be hidden away out there, just waiting to be discovered. What other examples did they give in the video?
Another interesting one is the Baghdad battery. It's this collection of clay pots, copper tubes, and iron rods that they found near Baghdad, Iraq. And some people believe it was actually used for electroplating objects.
Electroplating? Seriously? But isn't that a relatively modern process? How could they have known about electricity back then?
That's what makes it so intriguing. Electroplating basically uses electricity to coat one metal with another. Now, whether or not the Baghdad battery was actually used for that purpose is still up for debate, but its very existence suggests that they might have had at least a basic understanding of electricity way before we thought possible.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. It's like these ancient civilizations had access to knowledge and skills that we're only just beginning to rediscover. But if these fallen angels were such a major influence, wouldn't we see similar stories and evidence in other cultures around the world?
Absolutely, and that's something the video addresses head on. It takes us on this global tour of different cultures and mythologies, highlighting these striking parallels to the fallen angel narrative.
Oh yeah, now I remember. I talked about the Anunnaki from Mesopotamian mythology, right? Weren't they also associated with some pretty advanced knowledge?
Exactly. The Anunnaki were these powerful deities who, according to some interpretations of the ancient Sumerian texts, actually came down from heaven and played a role in creating humans and shaping civilization. They were said to have given humanity knowledge of agriculture, writing, and other key advancements.
It's pretty incredible to think that cultures separated by thousands of miles and centuries would have such similar stories about these divine beings interacting with humans and sharing knowledge. What other parallels did the video highlight?
Well, they talked about the Greek Titans, especially Prometheus, who's famous for stealing fire from the gods and giving it to humanity, even though he knew he faced some serious consequences for it. And that act is often interpreted as a metaphor for the whole idea of acquiring knowledge and how it can be both beneficial and dangerous.
That's such a classic example of how these myths often present knowledge as a double-edged sword. It can bring progress, but also destruction. Did the video talk about any other cultures besides the Greeks?
Oh yeah, they went on to explore the Norse gods, the Aesir and Vanir, who are known to interact with humans, sometimes offering guidance and wisdom, but other times engaging in trickery and deceit. Then there's the Mayan Kukulkan and the Aztec Quetzalcoatl, both depicted as feathered serpent deities associated with wisdom, creation, and the spreading of knowledge to humanity.
Okay, so much to unpack here. Ancient computers, possible batteries, and myths from all over the world that echo this theme of divine beings sharing knowledge with humans. So is the video suggesting that all these different cultures were actually visited by the same fallen angels?
You know, the video is careful not to make any definitive claims. It presents these parallels as intriguing connections, hinting that maybe there's a deeper meaning behind all these ancient stories. It's like they're presenting us with a giant puzzle, with pieces scattered across different cultures and time periods, and they're encouraging us to try and piece it all together.
It really does make you wonder if there could be some underlying truth to all of it, like maybe a shared experience or a common source of inspiration behind all these different myths and legends. But even if we entertain the idea that fallen angels might have influenced our distant past, where does that leave us today? I mean, how does that change our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe?
Now that is a profound question, and it's one that the video leaves us to ponder. Like, if there's even a grain of truth to these ancient myths, it raises some pretty big questions about our origins, our purpose, and our relationship with the cosmos.
So much to think about. We started with a YouTube video about fallen angels, and now we're diving deep into ancient technology, mythology, and the very nature of knowledge itself. Where do we even go from here? How do we make sense of all of this?
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? The video doesn't give us easy answers. It's not about telling us what to think, but about challenging us to think critically and draw our own conclusions based on the evidence presented.
So, what do you think? After diving deep into all this material, what's your take on this whole fallen angel theory?
It's a tough one for sure. There's a part of me that wants to just brush it off as like a fun conspiracy theory, but then again, you start thinking about the possibilities. What if our ancestors really did encounter beings with knowledge way beyond their time? And what if those encounters changed the course of history in ways we're only just now starting to realize? I think that's the beauty of exploring these kinds of topics, right? For it forces us to consider possibilities that might seem crazy at first. But then when you actually start digging into the evidence, you start connecting the dots between those ancient texts and archaeology and those myths that keep popping up everywhere. It gives you a whole new perspective on the past.
Yeah, it really does. It's like someone gave us a new set of glasses to look at history with. And suddenly, things that seemed impossible or unexplainable, they start to make a little more sense. But even if we accept that there might be some truth to these stories, where do we go from here? Like, what's the takeaway for someone listening to this deep dive? What should they be thinking about?
Well, for me, I think it's a reminder to be more open-minded about the past, to question what we think we know, and to remember that our understanding of history is always changing as we make new discoveries.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that history isn't just a bunch of dates and facts in a textbook. It's a living, breathing story that's still unfolding. And maybe we all have a part to play in uncovering those hidden chapters.
Exactly. And maybe by looking into these alternative theories, by digging into those mysteries that have captivated humanity for centuries, we can gain a deeper understanding of our own existence.
So what you're saying is this isn't just about ancient aliens or fallen angels, it's about us. It's about figuring out our place in the grand scheme of things, trying to wrap our heads around those big questions that humans have been asking since the dawn of time.
That's it. And that's what I love about these deep dives. It's not about finding all the answers. It's about awakening that sense of wonder and curiosity. It's about giving ourselves permission to be explorers, to keep asking those big questions.
It's like we've been handed a treasure map, and now it's up to us to chart our own course and see where it leads. And hey, who knows? Maybe one of you listening out there will be the one to discover the next piece of the puzzle, to make that groundbreaking discovery that changes everything.
And even if you don't stumble upon some ancient secret or rewrite history, the journey itself is still worthwhile. By engaging with these ideas, by challenging our assumptions and broadening our perspectives, we're expanding our understanding of the world and our place in it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Ah.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive into fallen angels and ancient civilizations, we want to leave you with one last thought to ponder.
Imagine for a moment that those ancient myths hold a grain of truth. What if those who came before us really did have access to knowledge and experiences that we're only just beginning to grasp? How would that change your view of human potential? What possibilities does it open up for the future?
Definitely something to think about. And remember, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never lose that sense of wonder. That's what makes life an adventure, right?
Couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.
See ya.